Alright, before this video starts, I just wanted to preface the fact that I do know this is a deviation from my normal content. I know I built this channel initially around the foundation of like politics and kind of my interest in that. But I wanted to just switch it up, see if like I could land with like this gaming content, see how I feel about it. And I was pretty passionate about like making this video in general, and I wanted to maybe see if I could mix in gaming with politics. And trust, I will still try to incorporate politics in this channel. I'm not just going to get rid of that because a lot of people are here because of that. A lot of people are interested in what I have to say. So this video is not a complete deviation. This is just going to be a partial breakaway so I can talk about something I'm passionate about. And I hope you guys enjoyed anyway. Thanks. One more thing to note, by the way, there will be partial spoilers in the background parts of my game, and you may see dialogue and stuff that could be fairly important in the future. So if you're looking to play this game yourself, I highly recommend going out and doing that. And if you still want to watch the video, don't pay attention to the game itself, because I will not be going in depth about the story when I actually discuss it. But in the background, you may see text, you may see dialogue, you may see fights that could possibly be important to the main line, and if you don't want to see any of that, again, try not to look at it, try to maybe just pay attention to what I'm saying. But anyway, disclaimer, and enjoy. So Baldur's Gate 3 is the most recent release from Larian Studios, a company generally known for Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, which, as someone who personally hasn't played them, I don't know much about them, but I have heard very good things. I've heard they have a similar kind of feel of like that turn-based RPG style of game. Baldur's Gate 3 has been by far their most successful release, and of course it's one game of the year and a ton of other awards, and I know Golden Joystick and things related to that. So of course games critically acclaimed. But we have heard some naysayers. There's a fair bit of people that have talked about this game and kind of had their negatives to say about it. And while I don't think Baldur's Gate is a perfect game, as I don't think there's ever been a perfect game up until this point, I think that is the absolute closest that we have gotten to perfection. And the reason I say this is because, there's a variety of reasons why I say this, but Baldur's Gate 3, up until this point, I believe I'm on my third like major run right now, and what I can say is that this game hasn't even remotely lost my interest yet. The amount of replay value and mileage that you can get from this game is absolutely insane, and it's so insane, in fact, that it has essentially raised the standards for AAA gaming. And this has been reflected by, there are literally companies that have admitted to being like almost afraid of how good this game is. Which, I mean, that if that doesn't say how good this game is already, I don't know what can convince you, because the fact that competitive developers are literally afraid of how this game has essentially put their games into the watchful eye of the players and basically made them realize that they gotta step this shit up, because if this is the quality of game that we could be receiving, I mean, they've got a lot of shoes. They've got big shoes to fill. And I know IGN has gone very in depth about how about how a lot of game developers have spoken on how like terrified they are of this game's success, and I do think that that's already a big showing of, I mean, this game has been met with so much critical acclaim that people are just already concerned with how near perfect and how fantastic this game is. And I'm gonna try to kind of compile like a sequence of different sections where I explain kind of certain aspects of the game and where I think they delivered, and I'll try to talk about the negatives, which I believe the lack thereof, more or less. But of course, as I said, I don't think this game's perfect, but I also don't think I think we have yet to see perfection in the gaming industry. I think that with this game's release, I believe that we are not nearly as far away from perfection as I thought we were, but there's still a chance that or the opportunity for it to arise still has yet to come. But I think that as far as Baldur's Gate's concerned, this game is right there. It's right there with literally the smallest of polishes, which honestly, I come back in a month, this game is a 10 out of 10 possibly, because Larian have been so consistent with updating this game and releasing major gameplay patches. I believe we're on to our our fifth major patch, and they've done things such as they completely overhauled the epilogue, because the epilogue initially kind of left people wondering like what was the conclusion for some of the big characters in the story, and it was, I'll admit, it wasn't the most fulfilling epilogue, and it definitely wasn't as satisfying as you'd expect from a game of this caliber. But they've now added an epilogue to the game to just, you know, like make the game better and to give people more of a wrap up for like a lot of the like beloved characters storylines, which when I get into the characters, I can promise you there's almost too many. So in terms of character creation, you're given the ability to select between either the 7 or the 6 origin characters, a custom origin, or the Dark Urge. Now, I'm not going to get too in-depth with the Dark Urge or any of the origin characters because I don't want to spoil anything, and I want to make sure that you kind of get your own experience in terms of what you end up selecting there. But for the sake of this, we're talking about the custom. So when you pick custom, you get the ability to select between 11 different races. And what's interesting is there's 11 races, but there are sub races that come with some of them. So you might pick tiefling. I believe there's 3 different types of tieflings, which is like the devilish like looking characters. And I know there's dragonborns, which there's a ton of different dragonborns, and each of these races come with their own features and their own special things that like race specific like abilities. And what's nice too is in certain dialogue options, you'll get the ability to say something that only your race uniquely is able to say. And that adds like pretty much every time you're going to do a run, if you pick a different race, you're going to get new dialogue, and it keeps things unique. It keeps things having that like awesome variety. And it's the same with classes. You get 12 different classes. They all play completely differently. There's new strategies to go about them, and they get new dialogue options. This literally means that you play this game 12 different times, play all 12 classes, you're still not even going to be remotely close to discovering what the game has to offer, but there's so much different things you can choose between. The classes have subclasses, so you might pick Warlock, but then there's like 3, 4, 5, I don't know, however many different types of Warlocks. You can start off with different spells. There's you can actually also select, I believe there's like 11 different backgrounds, which gives you proficiencies in certain skills such as religion, survival, stealth, which is an interesting touch that adds to like what you might be more or like better or worse at. And another thing is in terms of character customization, it's good. It's really good. It's in depth. There's a pretty fair amount of hair options. I will admit, female characters, you guys are eating good. Female hair options, female customization, way better than the males, but they're both still really good, super high quality. You can make really nice looking characters. There's good mods too if you ever want to spice it up even more than the base. There's cool, you can customize your eyes, you can customize a ton of different things, and it gets fairly in depth. There's no facial morphing or anything though, so it's more linear than maybe say like a Black Desert type of character customization. But to be honest, I think if they added any more customization, I'd be into character customization longer than I'd be playing the game, because I already spent way too much time making my characters, so I'm grateful that they didn't put too much into it. But it adds a lot of variety. You get, and I love the build variety, because another awesome touch is you have the ability to multi-class. So I can pick Warlock, but when you have the ability to level up, I can be like, oh, I'm gonna put this level into Fighter, Wizard. So again, every run, you could literally just completely deviate from the last run. It's almost like you're playing a completely different experience. So, and even with it, again, there's some class within classes. So you're always going to be able to pick a new build and find something different. And it's going to take absolutely forever, hundreds of hours to get through everything. So that's kind of a big touch that I really like. All right, now I'm gonna go in depth about the gameplay and the like the combat of Baldur's Gate 3. So the gameplay and combat are as expected for a D&D game. It is turn-based, kind of ability point and click type of combat. And I could make an entire video talking about this game's combat. This game's combat is extraordinarily in depth, and I'm definitely not the best person to explain it because I fucking suck at this game. All right, so if you want to watch someone who's way better at this game talk about it, it ain't me. I don't recommend me, because I'm not fantastic at this game. But I can tell you enough that, again, is a turn-based kind of ability select and click, and you get an absolute fuck ton of abilities that you can use. I mean, it is unreal. Like, you can approach a fight from like 100 different directions. Like, your options are crazy, and that's kind of honestly what my favorite thing about this game is that if I'm having trouble with a fight, I don't need to like fuck off. I don't need to like go try to do something else. I can just be like, all right, this ability didn't work. I'm gonna try this ability, and I mean, it is unreal how many options you have. Like, I'm like losing my mind right now because like even thinking about it, like you could literally approach a fight from like 30, 40, 50 different directions, and it's gonna be completely different. But yeah, basically turn-based. Your class really varies on what you're gonna do. There are classes that are very melee oriented, obviously, like, you know, fighter, barbarian. There's classes that do long range, like magic. There's classes that do very high AoE attacks. There's classes that are more meant for healing, like the cleric. So I mean, you really have a wide variety of things that you can do and a wide variety of abilities. And you ever get stuck on an enemy, it's never like, oh, I gotta go somewhere else and level up. It's like, oh, I gotta retry this fight again and see what I can do that would probably make it easier. Because over time, you're gonna learn the weaknesses, you're gonna find out the resistances of the boss, and it's gonna make you realize that, oh, I should have done this, so I gotta do this. And some people don't love the trial and error style, and some people like a more like, oh, I'm probably gonna win this on the first try type of combat. But personally, for me, I really like the idea of as someone who's like big into like From Software games, where you go into those fights and you're like, I'm probably gonna get my ass kicked the first time I do it. I love this style of like, oh, I gotta, like, this dude just destroyed the fuck out of me. What did I do wrong? How do I do this? Because I mean, it makes everything just feel so much more user centric. Like, I feel like there isn't a specific way to beat any of these fights. It's like, I gotta take my own method and find my own way to do the fight, and I think that just adds such a good player dynamic. And I know for a lot of people, that's the appeal of games like this, that like they give you so much freedom to like, kind of approach things from your own perspective. And another big thing to mention is, since you can get a variety of party members, like literally I could be using completely different people from you, so like your battles could literally go completely different from mine, which is another factor that I really like. That there's a ton of different party members, and like every party member kind of does something different, and there's definitely a way that, like, if you're really selective, like, you can realize that there's certain situations, certain fights that you might want a different party member for, and you might want to sub out like one of your current members for him. And I think that's just such a cool dynamic. I mean, it just makes everybody's playthrough so different. And yeah, that's mostly what I can say about the combat. I don't want to go too in depth, because I feel like I'm not the right person to be making like a lot of like the comments on like this game's inherent combat, like, and how great it is, because I'm not personally that great at this game. Another thing I wanted to talk about is this game's attention to detail. I think that's like a big underrated category of this game, but like, it kind of blows my mind, like how like much this game pays attention to like the most little things. Like, there will be certain dialogues or conversations you'll have with like a completely like random like side character in the story, and you'll end up seeing them later in like Baldur's Gate, or like later in like a different act, and you'll talk to them, and like they'll bring that up, or like there'll be like a continuation. Or one thing that happened to me is I had one of the like I had a character die in Act 1 that was pretty much like centerpiece to the story, and I was like, shit, he's soft locked. Like, I'm soft locked. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, he died, and like I don't know how I'm supposed to proceed now. And I went and I got a scroll of Speak with the Dead, and I used it on him, and I was able to literally ask him like the story-based question that was like literally crucial to allowing me to continue. And that just completely blew my mind, because I've never played a game like, when I've played like, for example, like Fallout, if someone like important died or something happened like that bugged out, like half the time it wouldn't even let important people die, but in the event that something were to happen that would cause a crucial character to die, it would fuck your game up. You'd be like soft locked, and you just have to like deal with it, and it's like shit. Like I gotta load, like I gotta like replay this part, I gotta approach this and make sure that like they don't die. But in this game, it's like oh, that like really important character that like had like everything to do with the story died. All right, that's fine. Keep playing. It's not gonna. I mean, you can still play. And I'm like, and you'd think that's just such a simple thing, but it's like, how many games have really incorporated that? I feel like a lot of games don't have that as like a concept that some of the most important people in the story can die. Nobody is invincible in this game. Literally, your character can die and you can still keep playing. You just won't have your character anymore. And I just really like the idea that like there aren't invincible people in this story, and like I think that just that adds such a like a cool concept of vulnerability to like the game that I don't think any game has like ever had to this degree, because every game has their invincible characters, but this game just doesn't, and that's crazy to me. I'm like, because like when I use that scroll, I'm like, there's no way this is gonna work. I'm gonna be fucked. But it worked, and I was just like, it was out of my mind. And I think that like that's a super underrated factor of the game. And I also want to talk about like characters and storylines as well. I think like the characters and like the characters and their individual storylines in this game literally could be games in them of themselves. Like your party members, like every single party member has an extraordinarily in-depth storyline that continues from the moment you meet them all the way to the final act, and it usually gets fairly wrapped up in Baldur's Gate. And like your ending, literally there's a ton of different ending varieties, because depending on who you choose to romance or depending on who you choose to stick with and like get their morale up, they're gonna react differently. Like if someone hates you, they're gonna be like fuck you, and they're gonna leave at the end of the story. If like you could get a lover and like you'll stick with them, and like in the epilogue you and them will be together, and like I just think it's really like I just really like the idea of like your characters like after this game is over, like your characters didn't like leave each other, like it isn't just like some brick wall. It's like there are continuing relationships past this game. Like the characters and storylines in this game are just so well done, and every character is like literally every party member is just near perfect in writing. Like some of them I admit I like more than others. Like personal Shadowheart Enjoyer, probably my favorite character, Love Asterion, and I think that his voice actor Neil Newbon definitely deserved to win the award, because like honestly I think any of them could have gotten nominated, because the voice acting in this game, I mean, this is like, it's like movie tier. It's like I'd expect that I'm watching a movie, and half the time I feel like I'm watching a movie with some of the dialogue scenes, because you could tell like this was such a passion project. There was so much emotion put into their lines, and I think that's like really underrated. And like I feel like a lot of people, like I personally don't put too much weight on things like that and things like the soundtrack, but it like I have to give this game credit where credit's due. That this game delivers in both those like two like small but important categories to a lot of people. And speaking of the soundtrack, I mean, just listen. How do you go from this?
Down, down, down by the river. Down, down, down by the river. Down, down, down by...
To this.
Hell, hell, hell has its laws. Hell, hell, effect and the cause. Curtain falls, but hold your applause. Squirm, squirm, for now down here come the claws.
This game might have the best soundtrack that I have ever heard in any game ever. Like, literally, I don't say that lightly. Like, again, I'm not like personally, I'll admit I'm not one of those people that like cares that much about a game's soundtrack. Like I think a good soundtrack can really like help boost a game, and I think that like if a game's like a little weak, I think that a good soundtrack can like really like can really benefit it. But I think if a good game's good already, the soundtrack's not that key of like an issue, and I think that you could really get away with just like a decent mediocre soundtrack, but this game's soundtrack is breathtaking. I mean, like they're like literally, I have not heard a single song in the score that like I think is bad, and I like a lot of them repeat a lot. And I don't even get sick of them. Like it's like I constantly hear it, and with a lot of games, like the lack of soundtrack variety gets really repetitive. But with Baldur's Gate, it's like every time I'm hearing like these songs, it's like I'm hearing them for the first time because they're just that good. They're that refreshing. And one thing I wanted to quickly gloss over is just the graphics of the game and talk about kind of like the performance of the game overall. Overall, the graphics are like nothing, obviously nothing mind-bending and like completely like out of this world, but they're good. They're still really good. Like I think the graphics in this game are fantastic actually. I just don't think they're like completely like new and like reinventing graphics, but that's not really like obviously it's a top-down like point and click type of game. You're never going to expect that to be the case. But even still, the graphics are great. The graphics are still good. They're definitely above average, and I think that they get the job done really well for the kind of game that like we're playing. And though, like another thing I want to talk about a little bit more is the world design, and especially when you're in Act 3, the cities are so in depth. There's people everywhere. You can talk to essentially everybody in the city, and there is like multiple probably dialogue and answer selections you can give a lot of different people. And you can tell that they put thought into each and every single one of these characters, and all the voice actors put so much effort into their job. I want to just quickly talk about some of the negatives of the game, and by some I mean I have two big negatives, and one of them personally didn't really affect me, but I know some people like believe this. I will say a lot of people complain that Act 3 is a bit of a slow burner, and this is a reasonable take. Act 3 is when you officially get to the city of Baldur's Gate, and I'd be lying if I said that there weren't parts of this act that I was kind of just like, alright, I'm getting tired of like running people's errands. Where's the fighting? And yeah, that is the case. There are parts that are weak and are definitely not as good as some of the like former acts, but I still personally loved Act 3. I liked Act 3 more than Act 2. Hot take, but I still loved Act 3. Act 3 is some crazy, unbelievable boss fights. And I still think it's a great act, but I will say it's slow burner. And it also kind of like goes into my next negative, where I will say this game, if you are a seasoned gamer, you are like hardcore and like you're used to especially shit like this, turn-based, you play DOS, this game's not particularly difficult. Like, I'll admit that. I love this game. I'm not the like greatest gamer of all time, so I still had trouble. I don't think this game's particularly hard. Like, if you're used to these kind of games and this is like your cup of like tea, you're not gonna have a hard time on Baldur's Gate. And like, that's fine. I don't think this game needs to be super difficult, because I still think that it comes across extremely fun. And I think even if you find this game to be easy, I mean, you're gonna get a lot more out of it than it just being a challenge. Like, if you're looking for a challenge, this isn't the game for you, but you're still gonna get a great story. You're still gonna get great character development. You're still gonna have a lot of fun, like strategizing, because despite this game not being particularly hard, it's not particularly easy either. Like, you can't just walk into a fight and like not know what you're doing at all and win anyway, because you're still gonna get your ass handed to you by a lot of different fights. There are some fights in this game that I will say definitely go to that high level of difficulty. There are some fights that are unbelievably hard. Like bosses that, like, if you don't play it perfectly, you're pretty much risking getting your ass kicked. Like, I think that's good. That's well balanced. There are fights in this game that are like, wow, that was easy. That was quick. I'm happy that I got that over with. And then there's fights that are like you're like sweating your ass off because like you're like I'm fucked. And I think that's good game balance to kind of like keep everybody on their feet. But yeah, if you're looking for if you're fucking coming from playing like roguelikes and all the like every Souls game and shit, like you think this game's about to be like the next big challenge, it's not. This game's not particularly difficult. Love the game, and I personally think the challenge was good for me. I think it was like fairly like up there for me, because I'll admit my first run of this game did that shit on Explorer because I need to get the hang of it. Like, I'm easing in different difficulties. I'm doing a tactician role with my friend right now, and I will say that tactician's a bit of a challenge. I know for some people it's not going to be too bad, but I will say like for 85% of us, it's going to be hard. Like a tactician mode is not easy. It requires a lot of skill. And the newly released honor mode is just tactician, but on one save file. So that's going to kick a lot of people's asses because you fuck up, you get a bad roll. There's no going back. You just got to play it by ear. Just got to keep going. And I think that's going to be tough for a lot of people, and that's probably going to up the ante because what's crazy is the fact that it was added late. And I'm guessing the reason they added that late is because they realized that there were people that probably wanted a bigger challenge, and they were like, "Oh, a tactician's too easy for me." So now you have the ability to get your ass kicked even harder. So hey, that's for you guys. But anyway, to just wrap up a little bit, I hope I can do this game a semblance of justice, and I hope that like if any of you were kind of having doubts in this game and didn't know if like you would like it or didn't think it'd be interesting, I hope this kind of maybe changed your mind or maybe gave you an insight or honestly showed you that maybe this isn't your type of game and you can respect it for what it is. But personally, Baldur's Gate is one of the best games I've ever played. I think it's the closest perfection we've ever gotten and absolutely love it. And I recommend it to a lot of people. I think it was well deserved for Game of the Year. I think it won a lot of awards, but I think it deserved a lot of awards. And I know people were mad that it won so many, but I feel like if you've played this game and you've put enough time into it, you can kind of realize that it's like, this might be by far the most deserving Game of the Year we've ever had. And it deserved a lot of the praise it got, and then there's a reason why it's one of the most popular games on Steam right now, despite being a $60-$70 turn-based RPG, which is not a genre for everybody. But I really appreciate you guys watching. I recommend you try it out. I know it's expensive, but it's worth every dime. You're gonna get way more mileage out of this game than the money you spend. So that's it. See you.